Hello all, this is Vanessa Love and this is my channel about the mental health field and related topics. Alright, so I'm just gonna upset a lot of people with this video, and I mean, I hope that people hear me out, but as reasonable and rational as I can be, I know that there are people who are on both sides of this situation, and I don't think that they'll like where I am. So I'm like, well, another controversial video. That I say that and then nothing happens. Anyway, okay. I think mostly because the asshole art therapists are kind of off my page at this point. So I wanted to talk today about there are some certification programs online that are offered for people to become art therapists. And one, I want to say that you will not become an art therapist that way. That is not the way to become one. The only way to become one is through school. And if I can say the most controversial things, is that's very white supremacist bullshit. And so you have to have the money to do it, and you have to be willing to not be paid a lot for it. So yeah, totally understand why you'd be looking for, cheaper options. What you can do, and this is that other very controversial thing, is you can call yourself an art life coach. There's no restrictions on that. There's nothing that says that you can't call yourself that. If you do ever end up calling yourself an art therapist, expect that at some point an art therapist is going to call you and say, I don't see you on, the American Art Therapy Association website. I don't see any credentials on your website. I don't think that you're an art therapist. You should take that down. And I mean, that's if they're being reasonable that day. If they're not, they'll probably just send you an email and be an asshole. So there's that. In some states, there isn't license protection against who can call themselves an art therapist, and this is kind of one of those, hey, just by the way, general ideas. So there are people who call themselves art therapists, and this used to be true for Connecticut, who aren't actually, who maybe have taken a class in art therapy. They're not actually art therapists. They may or may not have had training currently, and this is, the nuances. There is a license in Connecticut for art therapy. So in order for me to apply for it, I would have to take another $300 test, and I'd have to put in, I think, a $200, $300 application fee. $600 not covered by insurance. So that's fun. So while I do have my master's in art therapy and I can practice art therapy, I can't call myself an art therapist because I'm not a licensed art therapist. So I don't. Art therapy is within my wheelhouse. Obviously, it's something that I know. It's definitely something that I can do, but I can't call myself an art therapist because I don't have the license. And, at this point, it's, 3 years old? I graduated 11, 12 years ago. So to have to go through so much more and have nothing that says, hey, since you've been an art therapist for so long, maybe we'll just kind of make sure that there's a way that you can just have this instead of, paying all this money for something that doesn't really do anything, other than, keep you out of jail for being you won't be called a fraud. You won't be accused of being a fraud. You won't be, fined or jailed for calling yourself an art therapist when you're not a licensed art therapist, but you're an actually recognized art therapist. That's fun. Yeah. I'm kind of a little bit resentful of all of that because it happened so late, so much after all of the stuff that had happened in college, and I got out and still thought that there was some way that there was a licensure. There was not. There was a recognition in the field. That's fun. So fun. Yeah. So but there are plenty of other states where you can set up shop, call yourself an art therapist, and just kind of wait for people to come in and see you. There are many states where even if there is licensure for art therapy, it's not covered by insurances. There's plans that do cover it, and there's plans that definitely don't. Yeah, and there's also there's ways to bill for it, but that's not like if you're only a licensed art therapist, they might not consider that license as something that they cover. Fun. Figure that one out. You can always check the American Art Therapy Association website to see which states have those type of laws. Again, fun. So these programs, obviously, so these certification programs you might see through Udemy. I've seen one through Primo online or something. Let me double check. And it is not that, PrimoLearn. It's not that they can actually certify you in anything. It's, I guess, basically, I thought the PrimoLearn one was hilarious, because I went all the way down, because they were like, you could be recognized. We're internationally recognized. You know who they're internationally recognized by? The International Practitioners of Holistic Medicine and the Complementary Medical Association. So if you're not really paying attention, there's no art therapy in that. So you would be going to a program that's similar to holistic medicine, I guess, with art. So you're doing holistic medicine with art, but you're not. So that seems like that would just be a whole can of worms. And I understand if you do not want to pay $60,000 to $200,000 for an art therapy master's, going through undergrad and to your master's, totally understandable. And this is where I think the white supremacy comes up. It's not that I'm so much I don't even know. It's not that I'm always oh no, that's white supremacy, but I'm no, I think that actually fits here, because when I see the Udemy Facebook advertisements, and there are a bunch of really upset art therapists saying, I got my master's in this, it sounds so patronizing. It's you can't be where we are because you didn't pay the money to get into this club, and even if you did, we don't like you anyway. So it's a very exclusive and exclusionary club. And there are not a lot of therapists of color in this field. There are, my opinion is that they're mostly, and I think when I looked at the 2013 statistics from the American Art Therapy Association, because they were nice enough to send them to me, and I know it's almost 10 years ago. I don't know if they have another survey coming up anytime soon. Hopefully the demographics have changed a little bit, but it was mostly middle-aged, middle-class white women. And I was surprised that they were working over 60 hours a week to get $40,000, and that's the average. So, again, I don't blame anyone for not wanting to do this type of work, because it is very hard, and it is it is the foundation from the master's degree is helpful, but you also have to continually be into your own certifications, into your own you're always paying money to someone else. There is no hey, I finally have an income. It's yeah, you probably have this as a second career, because this is a hard one. And so I think that if they see the value in this, then great. And if they can afford to go through the whole process, that's wonderful. But this isn't it's not for everyone. College isn't for everyone. A master's degree in this isn't for everyone. And there are a lot of toxic environments, especially for whatever reason with therapists. And I thought that it might have just been my school. No, I've heard from other people and how terrible it has been for them. So this is not just like this happened at the school I attended. No, this happened at a lot of other schools too. The other thing to kind of, for the art therapists who are still hopefully hanging on, the other thing to consider is that some of the things like the Udemy stuff is nothing close to what I actually do. And also, like, just by the way, a lot of art therapists disagree on so many different topics that, like, you can't even go back to, like, the original founding mothers and, like, find something that they agreed on other than that art therapy is a thing. Like, anything else, they were, like, at each other's throats. I'm serious. They were, like, what I've heard about the first American Art Therapy Association conference was just like they all got into a room and like talked it out for like a weekend, and then like we're like, okay, well, yeah, this is definitely a thing, but like none of us can agree on shit. That's the reality of this thing, which I'm like, Jesus, can you imagine that being true for any other thing? It's like, yeah, so I mean, this exists. We don't even agree on the definition. We have to have a very wide definition in order to fit everyone else's definition of what this is. But for the Udemy stuff, there is nothing in there that I do. It's like, oh, come up with affirmations, do dream interpretation, then mandalas. And it's like, okay, well, the other thing is that you always are able to become MARI certified, a mandala assessment research instrument, like practitioner. I have done this. It's, again, paying money to other people. And, getting certified in something. There's no restrictions on this becoming an art therapy thing. So if you as an everyday person want to get that certification, go get that certification. So affirmations, that's not the only thing that I do with my clients, and like for the most part that's not something that I work on them with because there's so many other things that I'd rather work on than that. And dream interpretation, that comes up occasionally, but that's not like, again, my bread and butter. So I think that, like, again, if someone wants to do art life coaching and like really spend the time to like sit with someone and have no boundaries and have no limitations too, then like, oh my God, go do that. Like, there's probably some really good research that the people who do art life coaching can like contribute to the art therapy community that none of us want to agree that like that could totally be a thing, but it could totally be a thing. So the other thing is that like some of the stuff that was like on the PrimoLearn, like it just, I appreciate their kind of, I appreciate their attempts, because I'm like, wow, okay, this is not, nope, like, okay, I'm gonna read you the 8 modules that you can use for this. So the first one is psychology, a few basic notions. Sorry, that is too funny. A few basic notions. Hold on, let me show you something. This is the few basic notions on psychology, but like, you know, go on. The brain, neuroscience, and art therapy. All right, so I know that you're into that. Okay, the evolution of art therapy. Okay, well, there are books on it, like extensive books on this. Like, okay, colors, consciousness, and meditative artistic practices. I think you might be doing Zentangles. Art therapy and pathologies. That's one module. Oh my God, I can't even. Oh my God, sorry. It's like so hilarious because like all of these tiny little things are so expansive, and like there are people who dedicate their life to these like to what it just the little word that it's like, okay, you're gonna take one module and what, be an expert on that? It's almost funny. Setting up a session and artistic mediums and activities. That's what you'll learn in this certification program. Ooh. Become an art life coach. I'm really okay with it. Again, like I have no problem. Just please don't call yourself an art therapist. I also truly believe that there are many artists out there who could definitely help people especially if those artists have like overcome anxiety, depression, all of that stuff. I really love the artwork of the people who put depression and anxiety and trauma and all of that into their artwork, because oh my God, have you ever seen some of those most beautiful or raw emotional like pieces that you're just like, I just feel it, you know? And I think that that's like a great, like, it's a great example of how art therapy can totally be used by someone who doesn't entirely know what art therapy is. I'm fine with that. But like, I remember like, there is someone who knows me personally in New London, where I used to live and work. And I know this person. They know of me. I've interacted with them. This is not like like I've been to church with it. I have been to Rotary with them. This person knows me. They did their own art. And then when they had their art opening, they called it art therapy. And I didn't want to take offense to it, but I did on a little bit of a level. I'm not gonna lie. Because like, you could have called that anything else. I mean, I even think that it might not have been called art therapy. It might have been called art as therapy, which I'm like, please don't. Like, call this like your art of healing or whatever, like art of your healing journey through art, whatever it is, but please don't call it art therapy. Oh my God, it was so offensive. And I almost wanted to reach out to him and be like, hey, so, you know that I used to practice in town. Could you not do this? But I just, like, I'm so shy. I didn't want to, like, just be the asshole. I don't even know if I didn't really want to bring it up to him. This is months ago, and I'm like, so I'm just bringing it to a public platform and just telling you guys that this thing happened, and it kind of upset me. And I don't want to have that like reaction, you know. I don't want to be the art therapist who is like, you can't use that phrase, but like, oh my God, please don't use that phrase. Like, this is not a good idea, because this is not actually art therapy. It might be artist therapy. It's definitely your healing journey, but like, it kind of misrepresents art therapy in a way, and you're not trained in it. And I know you're not trained in it, because you're not. I know you. I know your background. You did not go to art therapy school in the middle of all of this. I already know. Yeah, so a little offended by that. But you know, like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's an honest mistake, and I don't think that anyone should be like, obviously, like, yelled at for that. I mean, I could obviously bring it up to him at some point and be like, hey, just by the way, that's not what you should be doing. There's been a lot with art therapy that we've tried. But yeah, like, I had an artist. She wanted to do a project about depression and doing like art, not directives, but just like having kind of a group together to do art in kind of that like expressing your depression type of thing. And I was like, don't call it art therapy. Oh my God, don't call it art therapy. I do not want the art therapist coming after you for something that like you know nothing about, and like this would be like an incidental thing, but like I understand where you're coming from as far as like you used your art to get through your depression, and like I totally respect that. Maybe consult with an art therapist in the area if that's something, because like, I mean, this was not even in this state, so I'm like, I didn't even want to like start to consult, you know, but I'm just like, don't call it art therapy. Oh my God, don't call it art therapy. When I was in school, sorry, my camera's being weird. When I was in school, the professors used to brag about calling other therapists and being dicks to them about like how they had to like change like their, you know, and not call themselves an art therapist. There was no license protection at the time, so I don't know why the fuck they were taking it upon themselves to like police other people, but like white supremacy. So they were like calling other people and telling them that they couldn't practice in the way that they were because they weren't registered and they weren't recognized as an art therapist, which I think is really fucked up. And that's, again, one of those things where I'm like, that person probably had some art supplies in their office and then was like, yeah, I do art therapy, I guess. I mean, that's a thing. And it's like, you really shouldn't. But also, art life coaching, totally a thing. You want to be an artist, you want to, go through your own healing journey, that's awesome too. If you want to get more in depth, go to an art therapist. It's a very much different experience and a very in-depth experience, but I also kind of want to warn you that like it is going to be different than your own artwork. So if you have your style and you want to keep it, then don't go to an art therapist. Like, continue on with what you're doing. When you're ready to push yourself to a different level of your art, then go to an art therapist. Like, when you're ready and open, like, yeah. It's kind of like, for the layman out there, it's kind of like if someone learns how to do only anime like styling, and then you tell them that you want them to express themselves or like draw a family portrait, they're going to do it in anime style, and that is mostly okay, but like it's not as expressive as most art therapists would want like a picture like that to be. So like you'd have to be willing to like go beyond that and like really, because like, yeah, anime like styling is really cool to do as an art technique. It's not entirely art therapy, and like one of those things where like you can definitely use it in art therapy, but like there's just like, you want a little bit more raw and expressive instead of rigid on how like things can be expressed when you're in an art therapy session. That's why I'm saying, like, if you're like an artist who has a very particular way, art therapy might not always be the thing for you. And like, I mean, you also don't have to take my word on it. Call your local art therapist if they're, if the way that you do your artwork is the way that, they are going to like help you express your art. Like, that's awesome. Like, go with that person. For me professionally, I'm like, oh gosh, I try so hard. I've tried so hard to push artists, and sometimes it just doesn't work out that well because like, it's tough to get people out of their habits, and especially if they have unfortunately bad habits with their artwork, then like you can't really get them to a place where they're getting into a deeper level. And for the most part, some people just don't want to. It happens. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I will talk with you soon. All right, have a great one. All right, and thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. It means a lot to me. I will talk with you guys soon. All right.